Does everybody in Virginia still relive the Civil War days? Do most people have relatives who used to pick tobacco? And does everyone outside of Northern Virginia hate Northern Virginia? We'll answer those questions and more. So grab your moonshine and your old blackberry. We're going to unbox the state of Virginia. Okay. Wow, what a pretty landscape. This is the Appalachian Mountains on the western side of Virginia. It's pretty rural out this way, and it's pretty rural in many parts of Virginia. But the Commonwealth of Virginia, as it's officially called, is much more than small towns, rednecks, military people, and government workers. Actually, no, it's not. That's just about it. That's Virginia. The video's over. No. To get a complete rundown of what it's like in Virginia, we have to get a bigger picture overview of the state. That way, we can look at each area in particular and get to know the state of Virginia a little bit better. One really simple way to break Virginia down would be this. Pretty much the whole state in yellow is rednecks. You have a couple of college towns here, the Navy down there, and then some suburbs where people have upper class jobs where soccer moms are busy doing soccer mom things. No, that's too easy though. This is better. We'll begin way over here on the western side of Virginia. This is Appalachia. Coal mining is still big here, although technology has meant less actual people are needed to keep up with demand since machines do a lot of the work now, which has made it even harder for people in these mountain towns to make a living. Only 5% of Virginia's population lives in Appalachia, meaning this part of the state doesn't have much in terms of voting power. If you live in this part of the state and you don't have a deer in your freezer, then your cousin does. Moonshine is still a big deal around here. Camouflage was invented in Virginia, and you think it was just invented when you drive around these parts. And of course, NASCAR is huge. There's 2 NASCAR races way out in the sticks in this part of the state. The Bristol track is technically in Tennessee, just across the state line from Bristol, Virginia. And Martinsville, Virginia has a tiny NASCAR track way out in the middle of the backwoods. I've been there. The track is so small, the entire parking lot's just a big grassy field out in a neighborhood. On your way to the track, you go down some dirt roads, past some homes, where you can buy anything from flags to ammo. There's 2 things people in Appalachia like: NASCAR and guns. And probably TV dinners. And trucks. And beer. And Jesus. Okay, so they like many things. But not everyone in these parts are backward rednecks. No, there's actually a college out here. This is Blacksburg, home to Virginia Tech University. They're really smart. But then they all get drunk, watch sports, graduate, and then they leave. They probably never return here, except to get drunk and watch football games all over again. The rest of this region is basically mountains, tiny towns with a gas station and church, maybe a feed store. There's a handful of resorts up here, some of which are really expensive. There's a few places where you can ski, although not very aggressively. At some point, if you take enough turns on the back roads up here, you'll end up in West Virginia, and you probably won't even be able to tell. Down here is rural. There's some farms and a bunch of woods. There's some pretty lakes. A few smallish cities like South Boston or Danville where you can get cheap stuff at the dollar store or splurge at Walmart. It's quiet, and people here have pride in their country. It's relatively uneventful, nor is it exciting. Then we head down here. This is Southern Virginia, where it's pretty much 20 years behind the times. This is called the Tidewater, or coastal plain part of Virginia. This is where most of the tobacco and cotton fields used to exist. A lot of the families here have been around for hundreds of years. In some of the smaller counties here, you'll find lots of people who have the same last names, and no, they're not cousins. But being down here, you feel like you're traveling back in time to 1990. A lot of people here don't have cell phones, and many don't have debit cards. These old school Virginians carry cash and a .45 on their hip to protect themselves. Down here, it's still very much respect your elders and go to church. It's not as hardcore conservative as it is down in places like South Carolina, Mississippi, and Alabama. It's very much still independent. American by birth, Virginia by the grace of God. That's a motto on stuff you can buy. People down here buy that stuff all the time. Of course, tobacco and cotton were a big deal here. Way back in the 1600s when colonizers realized they could grow tobacco here, well, that was enough to justify the colony of Jamestown. And tobacco was the first economic cash crop for America. And over the years, tobacco and cotton is what kept this place afloat, which led to Virginia being a very important part of the Civil War. But more on that later. But then, sometime around the mid-90s, the tobacco companies began shifting to overseas production. After all, it was much cheaper to produce tobacco in places like the Dominican Republic, Brazil, and Venezuela, where you could pay people 10 cents an hour to pick it. Picking tobacco takes a lot of manual labor, after all. Machines can't really do it. It's hot, and the nicotine seeps into your skin and can make you sick. Cotton production has also shifted overseas now, too. As a result of all of this, the economy is shot in this part of the state. Families, which had been farmers for generations, are now struggling to stay relevant. If you grew up here and you get a college degree, you leave. This is the eastern shore of Virginia. Many people forget that this even exists. Officially part of the Delmarva Peninsula, this long, narrow stretch of land is composed of just 2 counties, and about 45,000 people live here. They catch crabs here. It's very similar to Maryland. There are a lot of farms. It smells like manure all summer. People have funny accents. And don't forget about Tangier Island, a teeny little place out in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. There's a lot of colonial history here, and there's about 500 people on it. Due to sea level rise, one day, there will likely be 0 people on it. They have really funny accents, too. Of course, the military's a big deal in Virginia. Way down here in the southeast corner is called the Hampton Roads part of the state, or the 7 cities, because there are 7 cities here. Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, Newport News, Hampton, and Suffolk. Norfolk is Navy Central. In fact, this is the headquarters for the U.S. Navy Atlantic Fleet. As such, there's a lot of military people around. It's pretty crowded here, traffic sucks, and crime is above average. This part of the state is old and rough around the edges. It's below sea level, so it floods a lot. It's sort of an industrial area that's economically depressed. They're cleaning the area up some, so that's good. 10 miles away is Virginia Beach. It's suburban, pretty conservative, and there's a lot of military families around. Crime is lower than in the other 6 cities, and it's perhaps the best part of this general area. Summers are generally overcrowded with tourists, and there's a ton of 7-Elevens in town. Look at all the 7-Elevens. An hour away is the capital of Virginia, Richmond, a city with a lot of history. Richmond used to be the capital of the Confederacy, too, and since 1909 has been home to Philip Morris, which makes cigarettes and chewing tobacco. It's changing a lot now, becoming a lot more liberal these days. This was a state that was once synonymous with the Old South, where conservatism ruled the day. But Richmond has led the progressive charge in Virginia, and the state's now backing new gun laws, LGBT protections, and minimum wage increases. Now, this leap to the left has sparked fierce pushback from rural Virginians who are upset about the state's new direction. I mean, this is Virginia, the place where a holiday honors Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, with more Confederate monuments than any other state. Old school Virginians don't like to see their history and traditions slowly being eroded. Anyways, Richmond's becoming much more progressive and diverse, and there's a lot to do here. Nearby is Charlottesville, home to the University of Virginia. It's a college town, so it's obviously left-leaning, and there's a lot of young people. Their college basketball team recently won the NCAA tournament. Good for them. As you expand from the surrounding areas of central Virginia, you have tidy suburbs near Richmond, and then the further you get from the state capital, the more back in time you get. Southern drawls get more noticeable the closer you get to the mountains or towards the North Carolina border. Many people here still live out their Civil War glory days by dressing up as Civil War troops and reenacting battles here. After all, there were more Civil War battles fought in Virginia than anywhere else. Don't worry, those aren't real bullets. It's fake. Everyone's okay.
Did you know there were 20 states that fought against the Confederacy to get rid of slavery?
I did not know how many states there were, Mappy, but I know that many, many Americans died to end slavery forever. Everyone should remember that. And then we have Northern Virginia, or Nova, as it's called. This is nothing like the rest of Virginia. 38% of the state lives in the DC metro area, and that number is growing fast. While much of southern and southwest Virginia suffers from a loss of agricultural and coal jobs, here, the economy booms with tech jobs. Amazon just put a new headquarters in Arlington. Many other people work for or subcontract with the federal government. It's almost like a separate state. It's not a mostly white Christian region like other parts of Virginia. People in Northern Virginia complain that their tax dollars go towards the South. People in the South say their northern neighbors are bratty and arrogant. While the fashion sense in the rest of Virginia might be camo, Civil War memorabilia, or Navy uniforms, up here it's Suit City, mister. This part of the state's very diverse, with both large populations of poor minorities and large populations of very wealthy white families, many of whom are job transplants. 4 of the nation's 5 wealthiest counties are here: Loudoun, Fairfax, Falls Church, and Arlington, where the median household incomes range between $115 and $130K a year. The DC metro area can be seen as wealthy and somewhat snobby. Ask people where they live and they'll say DC, even though they really live in Springfield. Much of it is urban sprawl, cookie-cutter homes where mommies shop at organic markets and where daddy drives a fancy car. Gentrification is turning the worst areas near DC into less bad areas. Traffic is horrible here, where it takes sometimes hours to get to work, where you can expect to pay upwards of $35 each way and pray that you get to DC every day. That's a lot, wouldn't you say? Being right across the Potomac from the nation's capital means lots of secret stuff goes on here. The Pentagon is here, as are other important buildings. There's a lot of memorials and museums and fancy new condos along the waterfront. Lower class here is still far better than most of the rest of the U.S., and while much of Virginia is some shade of red or pink, this is true blue territory, pal. The state of Virginia is kind of going through a big transition right now. It's not really a true southern state anymore. It's more mid-Atlantic than anything. Colonial by birth and southern by blood, it's transitioning fast. The parts of the state which felt like they were 20 years behind the times are shrinking. Much of Virginia is still quiet, where the pace of life is slow, but old and historical is being replaced by new and progressive. Faster in some areas, but overall values are changing here. As Virginia changes its identity and brings itself into the 21st century, some places will never change. There's always going to be people out in the woods not bothering anybody, eating their porridge and possum stew. Good for them. One day, maybe these backwoods folks will even break down and get a damn cell phone, and then the first call they'll make will be to the Capitol, and they'll demand protection to their God-given rights. Okay, well, that's Virginia for you. We didn't even have time to talk about the beaches here, or the humidity, or how charming the Shenandoah Valley is. But we have to go. There's another Civil War reenactment about to start, and we have to get to the gate before it drops, or we're going to be stuck on 95 forever. Special thanks to Eli Gravitt, a fan of this channel, who grew up in Virginia and who took some time to lend his insight into what it's like to live in the Commonwealth. Thanks, Eli. People in Virginia, they used to be farmers. People in Virginia were the first ones to farm. Now Virginia's becoming so different. Now Virginia has a lot of new stuff in it. People in Virginia don't like those in Nova. Southern rednecks can't believe the war is over. If you're rich here, it's from old money or DC. If you're poor here, there's a chance you live near the trees. Man, Virginia is so old, but Virginia's getting newer. Why can't the people just get along? Why can't you all just love each other? After all, you're in the same state. Jeez, you're on the same side. Virginia is for lovers. 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 Yeah. Hey guys, if you learned something new or you just like this video, make sure to like it. And if you really like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get all of our videos about what it's like to live in different places in America.